Hi, I'm Brian Combie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Combie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening and welcome to the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV. Canada One has asked me to have a weekly show when I get to talk about politics and economics and arts and social policy. I'm really looking forward to the different people that I'm going to have a chance to interview. And one of the things I want to do is bring to you, if I could, some interesting political characters that we have in our community. And one gentleman I've got tonight is someone I've got to know over the years. He's one of the most impressive political activists I know. He's run as a candidate for the Liberal Party. He's run in some ward council races. He's been very involved as a delegate and as a writer. It's Amir Ali. Amir Ali is an MBA in international business from the University of Liverpool in the UK. He's come from Pakistan. He's immigrated to Canada in the 1990s, I believe. He's worked as a real estate broker. He is the editor and author of a magazine that comes out quarterly called The Politician, and he's a really nice guy. And so, Amir, welcome to the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV.
Thanks, Brian.
How are you doing?
Thanks for having me on the show.
So let's start at the beginning. I met you through politics. Why would someone like you who's just emigrated from Pakistan to Canada get so involved in politics? What's the benefit of that?
I came in politics by helping somebody.
Right.
In 1997, somebody knocked at the door, and she was running for member of parliament.
Right.
Corinne Boumier, if you remember that.
I sure do.
And she said, come and volunteer and so on. And she said, I don't know many Muslims because there are very few Muslims here.
Right.
And I never visited a mosque. I want to go inside the mosque and so on. So that's how I involved.
And did you take her to a mosque?
I did take her to the mosque, and she was very delighted that that many people really liked her.
Now, in the mid-2000s, you got very involved in a leadership campaign, which is a whole order of magnitude greater than just being involved in knocking on doors, canvassing, or taking someone to a mosque. You ended up organizing Toronto for Stéphane Dion in the Liberal leadership campaign. Yeah. So that's a big step involvement in politics. Why did you do that?
But it took actually 11 years to come there, actually, yeah. Because from 1997, not 9 years actually, 1997 to 2008.
Yeah.
It was 2006, I started
getting involved,
getting on more. And when Dion came to Toronto, actually, I was delighted to see him, and I wanted somebody in the leadership race from Quebec because I wanted to keep the country united.
The country together?
And so on, yeah.
So you thought it was important to have a leader from Quebec?
Yeah, so that was because I knew he has some deficiencies and all that, but that was the only thing I tried to help him.
Mm-hmm. Now you also were very knowledgeable and became very knowledgeable and involved in the whole climate change issue at the time, which climate change today in 2019, 2020 is a big issue, but in 2006, 7, and 8. It wasn't such a big issue, and you got very involved. I remember going to a seminar that you had at the Central Library in Mississauga. You were the host of the event. Stéphane Dion came and spoke and presented, but you were the guy that was front and center and very knowledgeable. Why did you get so involved in an issue?
Actually, in 1990, I started, getting involved in this one. In 1990, if you remember, the conference in Australia, and they were trying to erase R22 and R12 gases, which had a lot of chlorine thing which goes into the
atmosphere,
into the cover of the world and puncture it, and the people were getting cancer, skin cancer and all that. So I was involved actually in 1990 to deplete R12 and
I didn't know that.
R22.
And so this was when you were in the UK or when you were in Pakistan?
No, I was in Saudi Arabia at that time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was there. And Saudi Arabia actually, they had a whole village on solar energy. And
In 1990?
yeah, in 1990.
Really?
So I was very much involved in climate change from way before I came here.
Is that one of the reasons why Stefan Dion was attractive to you as a candidate?
That was one of the reasons, yeah.
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 And he was also really involved in political reform, where he really wanted to reform Parliament and the role of the PMO and the role of the local MP, etc.
Actually, I was not involved in that sector. I was more involved in getting Dion to be elected as Prime Minister and so on. You know. So.
And to do that, you had to organize not just one riding, but numerous ridings in
Four ridings, yeah.
Four ridings in Mississauga.
Yeah.
And in that regard, you must have been involved with not just people from the Muslim community, but everyone. And you were trying to recruit them to, number one, become delegates, number one, become members, number two, become delegates,
That's
number
right.
three, to vote for Dion delegates.
That's right, yeah.
That would have been a big job.
Yeah, it was a big job, yeah. But I was because I liked the guy so much,
Yeah.
and I thought a little bit extra time. I had a good team actually, team of very dedicated workers and so on. So and that's why I could do it. You know.
And
Alone,
then-
I could not do it.
And then you've either considered running or run as a candidate for nomination. So you've always coveted being an active politician yourself. Why?
Actually, this is a secret I'm revealing today. You know, what happened when Wajid Khan crossed over?
Right?
He went to.
So
New York.
Wajid Khan was the Liberal MP in
Liberal
Mississauga
MP in
Streetsville and
Mississauga
crossed
Streetsville,
to the
yeah.
Conservatives in
Yeah.
2007, I think it was.
So I was approached and I said, because Wajid was from Pakistan and I'm from Pakistan, it is better for me to run in the riding.
Mm-hmm.
And the groundwork is already done by him, so it would be very easy for me to go and do like that. But the things change, and when the other candidate came, and I thought probably I will not be able to win. I did not help myself actually. I rather help the other
else?
party to win. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the other secrets in politics is collaboration and supporting other people and building, teams and movements
because
almost
you're
together.
working for the party.
Yeah.
You're not working for yourself.
Yeah, so I think you've got to be, to a certain extent, ambitious and a little bit maybe egotistical, or at least confident in who you are to be successful in politics. But as well, you always need the support of other people, because you'll never get elected if you don't have people's support. So you've got to think about friends, you got to think about associates, you got to think about collaboration, and you've always been very good at that.
Thank you.
And then you decided to run municipally, and so you've run as a candidate in municipal politics. Again, why?
Why? Because again, actually one seat was vacant there. Suddenly.
Ward 4 by-election.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, and because I was a foot soldier for the current mayor, so I thought probably I step in and do it. But the candidate who is now the councillor, they had a very good backing from unions.
Yep.
Which I didn't know. Actually, I thought just a brand new guy and I can beat him. But later I knew that those unions are not only unions, and there are other people who are very strongly helping him.
Yeah, yeah. No, he had good support, but so you had good support as well.
Yeah, but if I knew who he's being supported, I would not have come.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've launched this magazine, The Politician, Le Politicien, which you publish. Is it 4 times a year you publish it?
Yes.
Why did you get involved in doing that?
Because Canada doesn't have any 100%
Public policy?
political magazine. So I wanted to do something only for Canada, because what's happening actually, even in the business, a lot of Canadian companies, they make good companies and they sell it to Americans. They make good companies and then sell it to Americans. So we don't have anything. We have just, small things which are not significant really. So I wanted something
Those Canadian...
in politics, so I thought I should start.
And if any of the viewers are interested in reading your magazine, how do they do it? What's the website?
That's www.lepolitician.com.
Sorry, www.lepolitician.com. Lepolitician.com.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, Amir, is because I think you're a great example of a person who comes to this country, who gets involved, and really makes a name for himself, and gets involved in the community. And I think that more people should do that. And I think that you're an incredible example of someone who has been a foot soldier, who's been a candidate, who's supported other people, who's started, just knocking on doors, taking someone to a mosque, as you said, and ended up running a leadership campaign for someone in all of Mississauga. So I think that you've set an incredibly good example. And you're not only someone who gets out there and organizes, you're someone that gets very involved in issues, policy issues, and publicizes them through your magazine, through conferences that you've run. We've ended up having numerous different breakfasts over the years where you've educated me on some of the issues. And I think if more people that came to this country got as involved as you did, we'd have a far more successful country. And I think that we'd end up having communities that would work far more closely together. Because one of the lines that I really like is diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. And we do have diversity in Mississauga. 57% of the people in Mississauga have lived in Canada for less than 10 years. So they're newcomers, on average, more than half of us, to Mississauga. But to get included, you have been kind enough to take me to your mosque. You've come to my church. We need to do that more often. We need to go to other people's places of worship. We need to go to other people's homes. We need to dine together. We need to break bread together. We need to get to know each other as people. And I think, Amir, you've done a great job of that. And I think you're a fantastic example to the community. We're going to take a break for a couple of messages, and we're going to come back where I'm going to pinhole Amir on a couple of the big policy issues of the day. Stay with us. I'm Brian Combie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Combie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV. Welcome back to the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV. As we've just talked, we're interviewing Amir Ali, who I think is a great example of someone who's emigrated to Canada, got very involved in politics, very involved in the community, and has had a significant influence. But I also mentioned, Amir, that you've got involved in a couple of policy issues. And so let me unwrap the onion a little bit here and really delve into a couple of these issues. Climate change. Climate change is something that you said, and I was surprised by it. You've been involved since 1990 when you lived in Saudi Arabia. Climate change is probably the #1 issue in the last federal election. 2/3 of Canada voted for a carbon tax in the last federal election. But at the same time, 2/3 of Canadians voted for the Trans Mountain Pipeline to take bitumen to the West Coast so that we can get our oil, our bitumen products to market. How do you reconcile that? What do you think the Liberal government's going to be able to do to keep the NDP, the Bloc, and the Green Party happy, and the Liberal Party on one side that want carbon tax, and at the same time the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party that want to get our oil to market on the other side?
It's a very sensitive subject.
Sure is.
And before I hit the answer, in MBA we learned about 6 thinking hats of Dr. De Bono. And when I look at you, you said very good things about me. When I look at you, you're wearing more than 6 hats. You are a TV host, you are a radio host, you are an energizer, I would say. You are a political activist, you are a political advisor, you are a CFO of a very, very big company. And I don't know how you manage. If I were a university, I would have given you PhD right away on time management. So coming back to...
Well, I'll take that PhD from Amir anytime. Thank you.
Coming back to this environment thing, actually it's a very because Stéphane Dion lost the election only because of the carbon tax.
Yeah.
And actually, when I was involved when we had a meeting, when they were going to do it, I was one of the person who was involved in this one. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was not Stéphane Dion's idea. It was Dr. Paul Krugman's idea. He's an economist, and now he's talking about another thing that you can trade
trading carbon credits.
Yeah. So he came with another idea. So okay, if you don't tax it, this is another way to do it.
Right.
So I don't think for carbon tax any political party will touch because it will have a lot of opposition, I believe. But there are many ways actually we can help to control the things which are supposed to be controlled. Alberta, for example, these oil sands they're just making I think 30 megaton so far, right? And their limit is up to 100. And they will go up, if the pipeline goes on, they will go for 70, and still they have 30 megaton if they want to increase the capacity.
Right.
Meaning that Canada is doing very good in terms of control of emission. Canada is a very big country, and they have got more land than any other planet per capita. But again, for the tax system, I don't think any political party...
Well, the Liberal Party is actually talking about carbon taxes right now. And as you know, BC has, the province of British Columbia has implemented a carbon tax. It's been around for a while, and it's actually reasonably popular. People don't vote to change it, and people have become used to it. I ended up having a fascinating conversation with former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney at one point in time. It's kind of a little fun story, because I was at a wedding during the 2008 election. And Brian Mulroney was at the wedding, and he was off in a corner, I guess because he was a little tired, sitting by himself. And I said, what a great opportunity. I got to go chat with Brian Mulroney. And we ended up having this conversation. And we talked about the carbon tax at the time. And as you may remember, what Stéphane Dion had termed it was the green shift. And what then leader of the Conservative Party, Stephen Harper, had called it was he had termed it the green shaft. And number one, Mulroney said, as soon as someone calls it and terms it a bad name and everyone else adopts that bad name, you've lost the game, because that's, you branded it in a negative manner. Yeah. But then he said something interesting. He said, you know what, I did the right thing with the GST that was the exact opposite of what Stéphane Dion did. Because when you get elected in politics, you get elected to have political capital and do something from a political standpoint that you think is important to the country. And I thought that improving the Canadian fiscal situation was important, says Brian Mulroney, the former Prime Minister. And what I did is, previously there was a Royal Commission that had toured the country on what was important from a taxation system. I had a majority government. At the beginning of the majority government, I implemented the GST, which I thought would be a major change. And 4 years later, I even lost the election over the GST, but people kept it because it was such a smart move. He said the problem that Stéphane Dion did is he announced it before he even took government and lost it, and as you say, people were scared of it for a decade thereafter. And he said what Stéphane should have done is not mentioned a word about it during the election campaign, had a Royal Commission, implemented early in his majority tenure, and then had hopefully campaigned on it 4 years later, which I think actually says something about politics. Is, you know, with free trade agreement, with the GST, with a lot of different things that people think are the right thing to implement, you can't campaign on them. It's difficult to campaign on them.
Yeah.
You actually have to do a lot of study, a lot of work. You got to implement it, and you got to prove that it works and it's the right thing over time.
I think they should appoint the marketing guys even to do right things. No, they should create some fantastic words, like advertisement.
Yep.
For the cigarette advertisement, how the cigarette create cancer, but how we sell cigarettes.
Well, and I think this young activist from Sweden,
Yeah.
is doing that
Strategy,
job. She's
yeah.
out there. She's an incredible spokesperson that is talking about climate change and why it's such a critical issue.
Yeah.
Let's change to foreign affairs. You're very knowledgeable on what's going on in the world, and I think you're publishing a edition right now that all our viewers should be interested on China and the challenges that Canada is being faced and the world is being faced by China. What do you think is the challenge with China, and what should we be doing?
China actually. China is playing very smart. What they're doing actually, they know that U.S. and the West will curtail them somehow. So what they're doing actually with their road communication program, which they're connecting to Asia actually.
Yep.
That program actually, that market is such a big market that if nobody imports anything from U.S., nobody imports anything from China to U.S., still they will survive.
Yep.
Yeah. But the second thing is...
well, and I think it was a friend of yours on the weekend that told me that if you had the population of China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India together, you've got half the world's population.
Not half actually, the total population of the world is 7.7 billion.
Okay.
And China is 1.3 billion, India 1.1 billion, Pakistan is only 0.22 billion. No, not the half world.
So maybe a third or so.
Yeah.
So it's a huge market.
You can say 2.5 billion people.
2.5 billion
of
7, so 1/3.
Yeah.
So that's a sizable market. And when you think about the United States, it's a rich market, but it's only 330 million people. Canada's only 30 million people.
But the question is, do they have money?
Yeah.
U.S. have money.
Yeah.
Do they have money? Pakistan doesn't have money. India doesn't have money. I mean, they have money, but the population is very
But
poor.
by effectively, recreating the Silk Route, they're getting access to all those markets and access to the Middle East and all the way into Europe.
Yeah, the thing is actually, for example, the money is in the Middle East, but Middle East is not that big. Middle East is just like every country is like Mississauga, Brampton. They are one country. Like Brampton. I was in Bahrain the other day. Mm-hmm. In about 2 hours, I saw the entire Bahrain. I said, and they have a king, they have a minister. I spoke with the Minister of Energy, and I asked him, did you ever visit the United States? He said, no, it's too far.
Really?
So actually their whole world is Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and...
Oh, there's a lot of money in those markets.
Yeah, but it's very small thing. It's not a big thing. And they have already purchased everything.
Yeah.
So the market is still our market. I mean, Canada, America.
So what's your point? Is that China is threatened by the United States or needs the United States? Or both?
Need United States.
Needs United States.
Both of them, they need each other.
And so you think that we're going to have some sort of satisfaction of this current trade
but today, the bad news is today, they imposed, they said, no, they're putting the tariffs on
each other.
Chinese goods,
Yeah. So what about the Middle East? We've got elections in Lebanon, potential. We've got riots or violence in Iran and Iraq. What do you think is going to happen in the Middle East?
The Middle East is a flashpoint, to be honest with you, and the Middle Eastern people actually they should sit down and solve their problem. What's happening actually? I'm very comfortable that Today, Canadian government is not involved in the war zones, so on. They pulled everything back. It costs a lot of money, you know. I think they should sit down and solve their problems, you see.
Yeah.
And whoever try to solve the problem, they think they're enemies, actually. Their thinking should change, you know.
Well, I think too often what's happened is, historically the colonial powers and then more laterally the Americans have always come in and tried to solve the Middle Eastern problems for them rather than having them try to figure things out themselves and solve the problems themselves. So that is an issue. Amir, I could sit here all night and chat with you about so many issues because you're so knowledgeable about so many issues and so involved in the issues. So thank you very much for joining us tonight on the Brian Combie Show on Canada One TV. Maybe I could close by a couple of sort of policy-oriented comments, because I actually disagree with you on carbon taxes. I think that putting a price on carbon is the only solution to solving our problem. I think we put a price on cigarettes, we put a price on beer, we put a price on a lot of things that we don't want through our taxation system, and it's actually worked over time, where people have adapted to that behavior, and we've ended up being able to influence people. And I think that's the right thing to do. And I think we need to force it through and get it, and people will become used to it, and it'll end up being successful in the end. I think what ended up happening to Stéphane Dion was ahead of his time, and Stephen Harper did a really good job in branding it in a negative manner with the green shaft. And I think that the carbon taxes initially were an idea of the right. The Conservative Party was supportive of them, and I think make a lot more sense than regulation and cap and trade and things like that. And as you mentioned, Paul Krugman, Dr. Paul Krugman, who writes in the New York Times and is one of the most prolific economists and writers in the United States, has long been a proponent of carbon tax, but so have a lot of right-wing economists, because they think it's the most efficient way to reduce carbon. And I think it's one of the defining issues of our generation. We have to reduce carbon, we have to improve our climate, we have to attack climate change. So I think that is an issue. I think the second issue we're talking about on China, I do think that China has, with the Beijing Consensus, their structure of economic development, been more successful than we have been in the West, in Canada and the United States and Western Europe in the last 2 decades. And I do think they've used state regulation and state finances to help them, and we do have to combat that. And so while I don't agree with a lot of what Donald Trump has been doing, I do think putting some pressure on China to change their intellectual property rules, their tariffs, not ripping off intellectual property the way that they've been known for in the past, is actually the right strategy. And so I think being tough with China right now is not a bad strategy, and I think that that makes sense. We've got to have our trading partners respect us. And so I think that that's something that's going to play out over the course of the next little while. And I think that this Mexican-Canadian free trade agreement that's just been signed again is a good example of that. I think we've actually got a reasonably good new NAFTA, and that came around because of good, tough negotiations at the negotiating table. Anyway, Amir, thank you for joining us. Brian Combie on the Brian Combie Show on Canada One. We're on every week with interesting people talking about politics and business and arts and social issues. Thank you for joining us. Good night.